Okay, boys and girls, we just watched two videos that talk about multiplying fractions, which is what we're continuing to build on. We're going to continue working today on multiplying fractions. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be working together on the guided practice. So if you haven't already, go ahead and turn to page 465 in your textbook and tear that page out. And also turn to page 467 and also tear that page out. And we are going to go ahead and get started with number 1. In our textbook, we have these little boxes, which is one of the methods that was used in the videos for multiplying fractions, and you're more than welcome to use it. But I personally don't like using those boxes. They kind of confuse me a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting an extra sheet of paper, and I'm going to be solving these problems on the extra sheet of paper. Problem number 1 is 3/8 times 4. Now the first step for solving this problem, as you all know, for multiplying fractions is that all numbers must be fractions. And here we have a fraction and a whole number. We can't have whole numbers. I need to convert this whole number into a fraction by annexing the 1 underneath. Now we can go ahead and apply what was on the video. We're going to multiply across. We're going to multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. So we're going to multiply 3 times 4, which is 12. That's going to be my new numerator. And then 8 times 1, which is 8. And that's my answer for the denominator. What we are looking at here is an improper fraction. We can't have that. We have a big number on top, a little number at the bottom. If we keep this, the big number is going to crush the little one, and that's not good. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be converting this improper fraction into a mixed number. We need to fix this. How do we fix it? Using division, of course. The numerator inside, denominator outside, and then I need a little denominator here, just in case I have any remainders. Now I'm going to ask myself, 8 times what gives me closest to 12? You can go ahead and look at your timetables if you're not sure. And it's going to be 8 times 1. 8 times 1 is 8. Now I'm going to sister subtract. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 4. That is my remainder, and the remainder becomes the new numerator. So the answer to this division problem right here, the mixed number to this improper fraction is going to be 1 and 4/8. And now all we have to do to conclude the answer to this problem is to make sure we apply the very, very last step of all fraction problems, which is simplify if needed. We are looking at an even number on top and an even number at the bottom. Both of these numbers are even, therefore this fraction is not in simplest terms. The 4 and the 8 are both divisible by 2, yes, because they're even, but they're also both divisible by 4. And we want to divide by the greatest common factor, which is 4. I'm going to divide this one by 4. I'm going to divide this one by 4 as well. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then my whole number just comes over. Now because we have a 1 as the numerator, we already know that this fraction is in simplest terms. The answer for number 1 is 1/2. Let's go ahead and move on to problem number 2. Problem number 2 says 8 times 5, 6. 8 times 5, 6. Go ahead and pause the video for now and go ahead and see if you can solve this problem independently. Once you have finished, you can go ahead and play the video and check to see if you did it right. Okay, the very first thing we're going to do here to solve this problem is we're going to set our 1 underneath. We need to convert all numbers here into fractions. Now all we're going to do is multiply across. Numerator times numerator. 5 times 8 is 40. Denominator times denominator. 1 times 6 is 6. We are looking here at an improper fraction. I'm going to put an I there for improper. I need to convert that into a mixed number using division. Numerator inside, denominator outside, and I'm going to put a little 6 here as my same denominator, just in case I have any remainders. 6 times the closest thing to 40 is going to be 36. If you're not 100% sure on this, make sure you have your multiplication facts out. 6 times 6, the answer is 36. Now my sisters subtract. Can't subtract from a 0. I borrow from the 4. This becomes a 3. This becomes a 10. 4. 0. There's nothing to bring down. Therefore, that 4 is my remainder. 6 and 4, 6. We are now going to apply the very last step to all fraction problems. Now, you need to be careful. If this was your final answer, your answer is wrong because this fraction, because we have 2 even numbers here, this fraction needs to be simplified. The 4 and the 6 are both even, so we can divide them both by 2. Let's go ahead and start with that. Divide by 2, divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now we need to bring this whole number over. We have 6 and 2/3. Both of these numbers are prime numbers. Therefore, this answer is in simplest terms. The final answer for number 2 is 6 and 2/3. Let's go ahead and try number 3. Number 3 says 5 times 4/7. If you're ready to try this one on your own, go ahead and pause the video. Go ahead and try it on your own. See if you can do it, and then you can follow along with the video to see if you did it right. If you feel that you still need a little bit more help and you still need a little bit more problems for us to do together, let's go ahead and do it together. Now, the very first thing we do, the very first step for these types of problems is to annex your 1 because all numbers here must be fractions. Now, all I'm going to do is multiply numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. Like the song said, I'm going to multiply across. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 7 is 7. This is improper. I need to divide. Numerator inside, denominator outside. I'm going to put my little denominator there just in case I have any remainders. 7 times 2 is 14. Borrow. There's nothing to bring down here, so my remainder is 6. The answer here is 2 and 6/7. 7 is a prime number. That means that 7 can only be divided by 7. Can 6 be divided by 7? The answer is no. This number, this answer, is already in simplest terms. Let's go ahead and move on to number down here. Let's move on to let's try number 9. Number 9 says 4/5 times 7. Go ahead and pause the video. I want you to try this one on your own. Pause the video, try it, and then once you've tried it and once you've gotten your final answer, go ahead and play the video and we'll work through it together to make sure that you did it right. Okay, so I hope that the very first thing you did is you put a 1 underneath the 7 to convert that whole number into a fraction. Then I'm hoping that the next thing that you did is you multiplied numerator times numerator. 4 times 7, if you look at your timetables, if you look at your multiplication facts, it's 28. Now you have to multiply your denominator times your denominator. I have a 5 and a 1 in my denominators. 5 times 1 is 5. You should have identified this fraction here as improper because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Then you should have divided. Next step is to divide. You're putting a little 5 here just in case you have a remainder. That doesn't mean you have to use it. We don't use it all the time. I believe in this one we are going to use it. 5 times 5, 25. Sister subtract. Remainder of 3. Now the question is, does this fraction need to be simplified? I feel that that is the step that most of us are still working on, knowing if it's simplified. Number 3 and number 5 are both prime numbers. That means that 3 can only be divided by 3 and 5 can only be divided by 5. Because both of these numbers can only be divisible by 3 and 5 and they don't divide each other, this fraction is already in simplest terms. This is your final answer. 5 3/5. If that's what you got, awesome job. You are finally understanding how to multiply these fractions and it's becoming fluent for you. Now you're able to do it fluently. We're going to do one more and then we'll move on to the back to applying all this fluency into our word problems, which is what most of our STAR test questions look like. Let's try, we can try number 12. Number 12 says 9/10 times 25. Again, go ahead and pause the video now. Go ahead and work it out independently. Try it. Try your best. And then once you've tried it, go ahead and play the video and follow along with me to see if you did it correct. Okay, let's go ahead and check it. First thing you do is you put a 1 underneath your whole number. And now all you're going to do is multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. I'm going to start with the denominator because that one's easy. 10 times 1 is 10. Any number times 1 is going to be the same number. Now I'm going to do 25 times 9, and I'm going to do it over here because that one is not so easy. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 2 is 18. 19, 20, 21, 22. 225. This is definitely improper. The next thing you should have done was divided. 225 divided by 10. 10. Oh, let me put my little 10 here just in case I have remainders. 10 times nothing gives me 2. 10 times 2 gives me 20. Brother, bring down the 5. 10 times 2 gives me 20. Have a remainder of 5, nothing to bring down. Therefore, I have a 5 there as my numerator. This equals to 22 2 and 5/10. If you have 22 and 5/10, you're almost right. You missed the very last step. This fraction, because you have a 5 and a 10, and 5 is a multiple of 10. Actually, 5 is a factor of 10. 10 is a multiple of 5. Because both of these are within their own timetables, both of these numbers are divisible by 5. This fraction needs to be simplified. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 5 is half of 10. Whenever the numerator is half of a denominator, it always simplifies to half. The answer to this problem is 22 and a half. Oh, I'm sorry, you couldn't even see what I was doing. Like I was saying, the answer to this problem is 22 and a half. Okay, now we can go ahead and move on to the back. We've developed our fluency, we've practiced how to solve, we've practiced the steps. Now we can go ahead and move on to the back, the word problems. Let's go ahead and look at number 17. On number 17, it says about 3/5 of the human body is made up of water. If a person has a mass of 75 kilograms, what is the mass of the water in this person's body? Okay, let's go ahead and look at the numbers. They're important. They need to be circled. We have 3/5 and we have the number 75. My question is asking me, what is the mass of the water in this person's body? Our new action word comes out, which is of. So what we're looking at here is 3/5 of 75. In our last multiplication practice that we did of these fractions, we work with the word of. And we already know that the word of, when we're working with fractions, means to multiply. Annex your 1. 3 times 75, 5 times 1. I'm going to do the 5 times 1 first because that's easiest. It's going to be 5. Now I'm going to do 75 times 3. 3 times 5 is 15. 21, 22. 225. This is an improper fraction. I'm going to convert this into a mixed number using division. Let me go ahead and do it up here. Numerator inside, denominator outside. 5 times nothing gives me 2. 5 times 4, 20. Further bring down the 5. 5 times 5, 25. Nothing left, nothing to bring down. That cancels out that fraction. The answer for this problem is 45. Let's go ahead and look at number 20. A rectangular painting is 2 feet long and 5/6 feet wide. What is the area of the painting? Numbers are always important, and what we want to know is the area. What is area? Area is length times width. Area is an action word for multiplication. 5 6 times 2. Annex your 1. 5 times 2 is 10. 6 times 1 is 6. Improper. I need to convert it to a mixed number using division. Numerator inside, denominator outside. 6 times 1, 4. So I have 1 and 4, 6. And if you notice, this answer is not here. Why is that answer not there? What you're thinking is right. This answer is not there because it needs to be simplified. The 4 and the 6 are both even numbers. Both of them are divisible by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and the 1 comes over. 1 and 2/3. 1 and 2/3. Correct answer is letter A. Let's go ahead and look at problem number 23 and 24. Problems 23 and 24 have a little bit to do with what we're doing today because they do talk about fractions, but these two questions have to do with place value. Place value is what we did at the very beginning of the year. It's the very first anchor up in the wall. It says here for number 23 and number 24, use the model here. We have one hole shaded, and remember that the decimal represents and. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40 shaded. And this is a worthless 0. The model is shaded to represent 1 and 40 hundredths. Write two fractions that are equivalent to 1 and 40 hundredths. I want you to think about this worthless 0. If we were to take it out, if I were to erase it, because it's worthless, it doesn't have any value, it can easily be taken out. How would you say this number? It would be said 1 and 4 tenths. How do you write that? You can write it like this, or you can write it the way you hear it. 1 and 4 tenths. These values are equivalent, but we're taking out the worthless 0 here and the worthless 0 there. Now another thing you can do with this is add the 0 back and add an extra one. Adding zeros at the end of numbers behind decimals does not change the value. We have not added anything with value because these zeros here are worthless. They don't have any value. So how would you read this number? You would read this number 1 and 400 thousandths because the 0 is in the thousandth spot. How would you write that as a fraction? 1 and 400 thousandths. These are the three equivalent fractions to 1 and 40 hundredths. What we showed up here, the standard form of this number, is the answer to number 24. It says, what is the decimal number that is represented by the model? Well, it is represented by one whole and 10, 20, 30, 40 hundredths. 40 hundredths. Okay, boys and girls, you are now going to work independently on the next page. Make sure you look to the board to see what are the numbers that you have to do. Go ahead and get started.